Pokémon, The Crown Beyond Legends. Prologue, a world that never notices. The world loves names. Champion. Elite Four. Gym Leader. Titles make people feel safe. They give shape to power, boundaries to strength. I once stood at the very top of that system. No banners. No crowd. No final speech. Just a quiet room, a final battle, and an offer that would have changed everything. I refused it. Not because I hated the league, but because I understood it. Power that needs to be seen eventually rots. So I let my name vanish. Records altered. Witnesses silenced. Victories erased. The world kept its champions. And I kept my freedom. Years later, when people looked at me, they saw only a trainer walking alone with a light bag and ordinary Pokeballs. They never noticed the way wild Pokémon stepped aside. They never questioned why danger always seemed to pass me by. That was fine. Legends didn't need to be announced. They only needed space to walk. Chapter 1, The Quiet Edge of Pallet Town. I left Pallet Town before sunrise. The sky was pale and unfinished, like the world hadn't decided what kind of day it wanted to be. The ocean breathed slowly against the cliffs, waves rolling in without urgency. Most trainers made a scene when they left Pallet. Families cried. Professors lectured. Friends promised to meet again at the league. I didn't do any of that. I adjusted my bag, checked my supplies, and started walking. Pallet Town was small. Quiet. Forgettable. That was why I stayed as long as I did. For months, I lived there like a background detail. I helped repair fences, delivered packages, and occasionally assisted Professor Oak when his assistants mysteriously disappeared before heavy lifting. He watched me closely. He always did. But he never asked the questions burning behind his eyes. I respected him for that. As I passed the last house, a group of new trainers ran by me, laughing loudly, arguing about type advantages and future gym battles. Their excitement was real. Honest. I smiled faintly and stepped off the main road. My journey wasn't beginning. It was resuming. Chapter 2, Before Pallet, Before Names. I wasn't born in Pallet Town. I was born in a coastal city far from Kanto, where the wind never rested and ships carried stories instead of cargo. Sailors talked about distant regions like they were myths, and as a child, I believed them. My parents were ordinary people. No badges. No research grants. No ambitions forced onto me. They taught me how to listen. That lesson mattered more than any battle. My first Pokémon wasn't a starter. I found it after a storm. The sea had been violent that night, waves tearing at the shore like something desperate to escape. When the storm passed, I saw it lying among broken driftwood. Wounded. Ancient. Watching me. I never told anyone what it was. I only remember kneeling in the sand, rain soaking my clothes, and feeling something vast and patient brush against my thoughts. That day, I learned two things. Pokémon weren't owned. And power didn't need permission. I left home young. Not because I was chased out, but because staying felt like lying to myself. I walked between regions, learned from strangers, battled when challenged, disappeared when noticed too much. By the time the league found me, I was already tired. By the time I reached the top, I was empty. Pallet Town came later. A place quiet enough to forget who I'd been. Chapter 3, Viridian City Doesn't Ask Questions. Viridian City buzzed with noise. Trainers crowded the Pokémon Center, comparing teams and exaggerating victories. The air smelled of disinfectant, sweat, and ambition. The gym stood at the edge of the city, doors locked tight. Some things didn't change. I didn't ask when it would open. Instead, I rented a room at a small inn run by an old man with a scar across his cheek and a grow light that slept like it owned the place. He handed me the key without curiosity. That night, I walked beyond the city lights. That was when Team Rocket found me. 3 of them stepped onto the road, blocking my path. Their uniforms were clean, their confidence borrowed. "Hand over your Pokémon," one said. I looked at them for a moment. Then I took a step forward. I didn't release a Pokémon. I didn't threaten them. I simply let them feel me notice them. That was enough. Fear spread faster than commands ever could. They ran. I continued walking. Viridian City slept on, unaware. And that was exactly how I liked it. Chapter 4, Viridian Forest Breathes. Viridian Forest didn't feel dangerous. It felt alive. The moment I stepped beneath its canopy, the noise of the city faded behind me. Sunlight filtered through layers of leaves, breaking into scattered patterns on the dirt path. The air was cooler here, damp with moss and old wood. Most trainers hurried through Viridian Forest. They feared bug types. Poison. Getting lost. I slowed down instead. A caterpie inched along a low branch beside the path, its body moving with careful determination. A Kakuna hung silently nearby, waiting for a change no one could rush. I watched for a while, then moved on. Halfway through the forest, I heard shouting. A young trainer stood in a clearing, panic written all over his face. His metapod lay in the grass, exhausted, while a wild beedrill hovered above, wings buzzing angrily. I stepped between them. The beedrill noticed me immediately. I didn't reach for a pokeball. I met its eyes and stood still. The forest went quiet. After a long moment, the beedrill turned and flew away, disappearing into the trees. The boy stared at me like I'd performed a miracle. Thank you, he said. How did you do that?
I shrugged. Sometimes, not fighting is the answer. He didn't understand, but he nodded anyway. When I left the forest hours later, the sun was already lowering. Viridian Forest breathed behind me, unchanged. Chapter 5, Stone and Stillness in Pewter City. Pewter City was built on patience. Stone buildings. Stone streets. People who spoke slowly and listened carefully. Even the air felt heavier, grounded. I rested for a day before challenging the gym. Not because I needed to prepare, but because I wanted to. The pewter gym was quiet when I entered. Brock stood at the center, arms crossed, eyes sharp but calm. "You're not like the others," he said after watching me walk in. "I walk a lot," I replied. He smiled faintly. The battle was clean and brief. No shouting. No flashy techniques. Just understanding. When it ended, Brock handed me the Boulder badge without hesitation. "You already know why you won," he said. I nodded. Outside, the sun warmed the stone streets. I tucked the badge away and went to eat. Chapter 6, The Long Road East. Route 3 stretched endlessly toward the mountains. Trainers battled everywhere, short, loud conflicts full of excitement and frustration. I passed them by, offering help only when asked. A hiker shared his lunch with me. A Clefairy watched us from afar, curious but cautious. That night, I camped beneath the stars. The sky over Kanto was wide and honest. I lay awake longer than necessary, listening to the world breathe. Somewhere far above, something vast moved quietly. It didn't approach. It didn't need to. Chapter 7, Empty Moon Doesn't Rush. Empty Moon was dark, damp, and echoing. Zubat fluttered overhead, their cries bouncing endlessly off stone walls. I moved carefully, not wanting to disturb more than necessary. Inside, I encountered Team Rocket again. Different faces. Same arrogance. They were arguing about fossils when they noticed me. "Hey! You," one shouted. I sighed. Chapter 8, Water, Masks, and Memory. I didn't head to the Cerulean gym right away. Cerulean City felt like a place that punished impatience. Water flowed everywhere, through canals, under white stone bridges, along narrow paths where sunlight fractured into rippling patterns. Even the air felt lighter here, cooler, cleaner. I was watching Goldeen drift lazily beneath a bridge when someone nearly walked into me. "Hey, watch it." I stepped aside. Orange hair. Sharp eyes. A bag of poke puffs crushed slightly in one hand. Misty. She didn't recognize me. To her, I was just another traveler. "Sorry," I said. She studied me for a second, then clicked her tongue. "You're not from around here." "No." She walked past, muttering about distracted trainers. I smiled faintly and continued on. The gym battle came later. The pool battlefield reflected everything: lights, movement, intention. Misty stood across from me, confident but alert. When I released Ivysaur, she paused. Grass against water. Simple math. What she didn't know was that Ivysaur wasn't Ivysaur. As the battle began, Stereo moved fast, water gun sharp and precise. I let Ivysaur take the pressure, roots anchoring, body swaying naturally. Vine Whip wasn't used to strike, only to control space. Starmie was different. Faster. Smarter. Misty pushed hard, rapid spin, angles meant to disorient, pressure meant to force mistakes. I didn't rush. I never had to. As Ivysaur moved, I remembered the night I met it, Mew, long before Palette, long before badges. A ruined shrine hidden deep in jungle stone. No trap. No battle. Just curiosity meeting curiosity. It had watched me for days before revealing itself, shifting shape like a thought unfinished. I hadn't thrown a pokeball. It had followed me instead. Back in the gym, Leech Seed landed during a single overextension. From there, the battle slowed. Endurance replaced aggression. Water calmed. When it ended, Misty stared, not angry, just searching. "You've battled before," she said. "Yes." "Against stronger opponents than me." "Yes." She handed me the Cascade badge, then asked quietly, "What are you running from?" I didn't answer. Chapter 9, A City That Flows. I stayed in Cerulean longer than planned. The city invited wandering. I explored the gardens near the bike shop, listened to trainers argue tactics they didn't fully understand, and drank tea at a canal-side cafe where Psyduck wandered freely and no one questioned it. Later, I found myself at the Northern Cape, watching the water slow into clarity. That was where I saw Misty again. She sat on the railing, feet above the canal, feeding poke puffs to a group of Poliwag. They spun happily, unaware of gyms or leagues. She noticed me eventually. "You again," she said. "I walk a lot." She huffed. "Figures." We sat in silence. It wasn't awkward. Cerulean didn't need conversation to feel full. That evening, I visited the small aquarium near the gym. Not famous. Just cared for. Pokemon rested there, healed, watched by staff who loved them without expecting greatness in return. Ivysaur, Mew, floated beside me later that night, form relaxed, disguise intact. It always chose when to be seen. As lantern light rippled across the canals, I understood why Cerulean felt different. Water didn't conquer. It endured. The next morning, I headed south toward Vermilion. The road opened. And I followed it. Chapter 10, The Road That Remembers. The underground path south from Cerulean was dim and close, the air heavy with the scent of damp stone. Voices bounced off the walls, trainers laughing, arguing, sometimes crying. In that echo, I felt strangely calm. Alone, you notice things. You hear things. The road remembers. When I emerged near Vermilion City, the world opened wide. The sea stretched beyond the horizon, indifferent and timeless. Ships rocked gently in the harbor, their metal hulls scarred from storms and long journeys. The salt tang was strong enough to sting my nose, yet comforting. Somewhere beneath the waves, I felt eyes watching, curious, cautious. I slowed my steps and let Mew, disguised as Ivysaur, drift beside me. Even in its small form, it exuded a patient intelligence, aware of the unseen currents of power in this city. Chapter 11, Vermilion Smells Like Motion. Vermilion never rested. Sailors shouted, machinery clanked, wind gulls circled overhead like punctuation marks. Trainers crowded the harbor, brimming with energy, some boasting of gym victories, others staring at the horizon like it might answer a secret question. I found a room overlooking the docks. From the balcony, I watched the sea and the people working it, wondering which of them understood that some journeys aren't about arriving but simply moving. That evening, I wandered through the markets near the dock, stopping to admire exotic berries and rare trinkets brought by travelers. A hiker offered me a small snack. I accepted, the gesture more comforting than the food. The city smelled of salt, oil, and life in motion. Chapter 12, The SS and Invitation. A sailor handed me a ticket to the SS and the next morning, after watching me calm a panicked Horsia tangled in rope. He didn't ask my name, only nodded as if he already knew it. The ship was a floating city. Polished wood, white steel, and endless decks teeming with travelers. Trainers challenged each other on the upper decks, while crew members shuffled quietly, performing their daily routines with meticulous rhythm. I leaned over the railing and felt Mew's presence stir. Something deeper moved beneath the waves, distant but familiar. The sea always had secrets, and today it was calling something powerful. Chapter 13, The First Legendary. It was near sunset when the alarm sounded, a disturbance in the engine room, sparks and chaos that no ordinary Pokémon could cause. People panicked. Crew shouted. Trainers scrambled. I followed the vibrations and found it, a creature of lightning, feathers glinting gold even in dim light. Zapdos. The air itself crackled around it, thick with energy. I didn't reach for a Pokeball immediately. I waited, letting it test me, observing patterns in its attacks. Lightning shot toward me, narrowly missing, throwing sparks against the walls. Then I acted. Not aggressively, not with force, but with strategy. I released Mew, letting it reveal its true form to match the electric energy, not to fight, but to create a tether of trust. I baited Zapdos toward an empty cargo hold, using reflections of metal and water as guidance. Finally, a single perfectly timed Pokeball hit its mark, not with brute force, but with understanding. Zapdos faltered just long enough to see me not as an enemy, but as someone who respected its strength. The ball captured it. Even in victory, I knelt, feeling the hum of energy pulse through the hull. Chapter 14, Calm After the Storm. The ship settled. The storm of panic dissipated, crew and trainers alike breathing a collective sigh. I walked alone to the top deck, the wind whipping against my face. Zapdos perched beside me, wings folding like quiet thunder. The city lights twinkled in the distance, indifferent to the power now hidden in my pack. I allowed myself a small smile. The thrill of the capture faded, replaced by a quiet reflection, strength without recognition, trust without applause, freedom without burden. Mew hovered beside me, form gentle, its gaze deep. For once, the ocean seemed patient with me. Chapter 15, Morning in Vermilion. I spent the next day exploring Vermilion City properly. The docks were alive in daylight, merchants shouting, seagulls swooping. I wandered into small alleys, discovering a tiny tea shop that served fresh seafood and watched the tides while I drank. A few trainers tried to challenge me for practice, unaware of the strength I had hidden. I let them win small skirmishes here and there, letting them feel capable, keeping the journey alive for them. Evening came with soft light over the sea, and I found a quiet pier. Zapdos perched silently beside me, Mew drifted in its small form nearby. The city hummed like it always had, and I thought again about freedom. Chapter 16, Route 9 Reflections. The road north toward Diglett Cave was flat, dusty, and quiet. I walked alone for hours. Mew occasionally darted ahead, curiosity guiding it, then returned to my side. Zapdos stayed perched, wings tucked but alert, feathers catching the low sun. I thought about the gym battles, the ship, the capture. My chest tightened not from pride, but from the weight of choices. Legendary Pokémon were more than weapons. They were responsibilities, companions, and mirrors of my own restraint. Team Rocket appeared briefly, clumsy as ever, only to vanish when Zapdos ruffled its wings. Their persistence amused me. Chapter 17, Diglett Cave Echoes. Inside Diglett Cave, echoes swallowed every sound. Stalactites dripped like distant clocks. I passed sleeping Diglets, careful not to disturb them. At the deepest chamber, I remembered another moment, a flashback of Mew hiding in a clearing, watching me in silence before trusting me. That trust was rare. Legendary Pokémon weren't won by power. They were earned. The cave's faint light highlighted the dust in the air. I moved carefully, listening, reflecting, feeling the rhythm of the earth and my own heartbeat. Chapter 18, Vermilion Farewell. I left Vermilion City quietly the next morning. Sailors waved without knowing me. Trainers rushed to SS and without concern for the world beyond their steps. I walked the harbor one last time, feeling the weight of Zapdos in my pack. Mew hovered beside me. Both creatures were more than Pokémon, they were companions who had chosen to trust me. The road stretched south, flat and inviting. Somewhere, ahead, the next adventure waited. Chapter 19, On the Road Again. The path toward Cerulean's northern exit was filled with life. Grass swayed in the wind, distant cries of wild Pokémon echoed, and the sun caught the tips of every leaf like gold. I let myself breathe. For once, I wasn't racing. I wasn't battling. I wasn't proving anything. Zapdos settled on a boulder, feathers glowing faintly in the morning light. Mew slipped between the trees, playful, invisible to everyone else.